Welcome to my channel. Try to hear the latest story.
My 19th birthday celebration at an upscale restaurant became a nightmare when my parents, David and Martha, casually announced they had spent 92% of my $400,000 trust fund on my sister's elaborate weddings. When I sat in shocked silence, my father, David, shrugged and said, "Hope you understand, son. Family comes first." I stared at my three sisters, Jessica, Amanda, and Caroline, who avoided eye contact while cutting their cake, realizing my entire future just evaporated with those words. The morning after my birthday disaster, I drove to my parents' suburban Connecticut home with my hands trembling on the steering wheel. Sleep had been impossible. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard Dad's casual dismissal echoing in my head. $400,000. My grandfather's gift to secure my future. Gone. I found Dad at the kitchen table, reviewing insurance claims with his reading glasses perched on his nose. Mom was organizing real estate listings on her laptop, sipping coffee from her favorite ceramic mug. Both looked up when I entered, and I caught something in their expressions. Not guilt, but annoyance that I had returned. "Perry, sweetheart," Mom said with forced brightness. "You look tired. Did you sleep well?" "How could I sleep?" I demanded, pulling out a chair across from Dad. "You destroyed my trust fund. I need to see every record, every receipt, every document." Dad removed his glasses and set them down with deliberate precision. "Son, we discussed this last night. The money went to good purposes. Your sisters deserved beautiful weddings. That money was mine," I said, fighting to keep my voice steady. "Grandpa left it specifically for my education and future. You had no right." Mom reached across the table, attempting to pat my hand. "Perry, you're being dramatic. Family supports each other. The girls needed our help, and we provided it." I pulled my hand away. "I want the financial records. Now." Dad's jaw tightened. "You're not entitled to demand anything. We're your parents, and we made the best decisions for this family." For the next 2 hours, I fought tooth and nail to extract information. Dad grudgingly pulled out folders containing wedding expenses, spreading them across the kitchen table like evidence of his generosity rather than his theft. Jessica's wedding had cost $150,000. The country club reception alone was $60,000. Her dress cost $8,000. The photographer charged $15,000. The flowers were $12,000. Dad pointed to each expense with pride, explaining how Jessica deserved perfection for her special day. Amanda's beach wedding in California totaled $120,000. The destination venue cost $40,000. Flying relatives across the country added $20,000. Her designer gown cost $6,000. The reception dinner was $30,000. Mom showed me photos on her phone, gushing about the sunset ceremony. Caroline's recent Hawaiian destination wedding cost $180,000. The resort package was $70,000. Airfare for the family cost $25,000. The photographer and videographer charged $30,000. Caroline's dress cost $10,000. The reception entertainment was $15,000. I stared at the receipts, adding numbers in my head. That's $450,000 total. My trust fund only had $400,000. Where did the extra $50,000 come from? Dad shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Mom suddenly became very interested in her coffee mug. "Dad, answer me. Where did the extra money come from?" "We took out some supplemental financing," Dad admitted reluctantly. "What kind of financing?" Silence stretched between us like a live wire. Finally, Dad opened another folder and withdrew loan documents. We secured additional funds using various assets as collateral. I scanned the paperwork, and my blood turned to ice. My name appeared on multiple loan applications. My signature was on documents I had never seen before. "These loans are in my name," I whispered. "When did I sign these?" "You were 17, Mom said quickly. "We needed a co-signer, and you were old enough to help family. I never signed any loan documents. I would remember signing away $75,000. Dad slammed his hand on the table. "You did sign them. You just forgot." Don't accuse us of forgery. But I knew I had never signed anything. My signature on these documents looked similar to mine, but the pen pressure was wrong. The letter spacing was different. Someone had forged my name, and badly. Did my sisters know? I asked. Did they know you were spending my trust fund? Mom and Dad exchanged glances. That was answer enough. They knew, I said. Jessica knew when she planned her $150,000 wedding. Amanda knew when she chose California. Caroline knew when she picked Hawaii. They all knew you were stealing my future, and they took the money anyway. It wasn't stealing, Mom protested. It was family supporting family. Your sisters needed beautiful weddings to start their marriages properly. You should be happy for them. Happy? I stood up so quickly my chair scraped against the floor. You stole $400,000 from me, forged my signature on $75,000 in loans, and you think I should be happy? Dad rose to his feet, his face reddening. Don't you dare talk to us like that. We sacrificed everything for you kids. We worked overtime for years to provide for this family. We deserve some appreciation, not accusations from an ungrateful son. You deserve prison, I shot back. The words hung in the air like a challenge. Dad's face went from red to purple. Mom gasped audibly. Get out, Dad said quietly. Get out of this house right now. If you can't appreciate family, then you don't belong in this family. Come back when you're ready to apologize and act like a decent son. I gathered the loan documents before Dad could stop me. I'll be back with lawyers. If you bring lawyers into this family, Dad called after me, you'll regret it for the rest of your life. Well, make sure of that. I walked out, clutching the evidence of their betrayal, knowing my childhood was officially over. The next morning, I sat in the waiting room of Harrison and Associates, watching the second-hand tick-around the wall clock. My grandfather's lawyer, Robert Harrison, had agreed to see me immediately when I called, explaining the trust fund situation. Robert emerged from his office exactly at 10 o'clock, a distinguished man in his 60s with silver hair and a firm handshake. Perry, I'm sorry to hear about your troubles. Please, come in and tell me everything. His office smelled like leather and old books. Legal volumes lined the walls from floor to ceiling. Robert poured coffee from an antique silver service and listened without interruption as I explained the wedding expenses and forged loan documents. When I finished, Robert was quiet for several minutes, studying the papers I had brought. Finally, he looked up with the gravest expression I had ever seen. Perry, what your parents did wasn't just morally wrong. It was criminal. Multiple felonies, actually. He walked to a filing cabinet and retrieved a thick folder labeled Harrison Trust, Perry. Inside were documents I had never seen before. This is your grandfather's original trust agreement, Robert said, opening to the first page. Your grandfather was very specific about the terms. The $400,000 was designated exclusively for your education, housing, and career development. Your parents were named as trustees, but they had no authority to use the money for any other purpose. I read the legal language carefully. The trust explicitly forbade using funds for family members other than me. It required my written consent for any expenditure over $5,000. It mandated annual financial reports be provided to me starting at age 18. I never received any annual reports, I said. Because your parents never filed them, Robert replied grimly. They were required by law to document every transaction and present detailed accounting to you and to this office annually. They stopped communicating with us 3 years ago. Robert showed me additional documents that made my stomach churn. My grandfather had actually established the trust with $600,000, not $400,000. The trust was supposed to earn interest annually, growing to approximately $750,000 by now. Your parents have been skimming money from the trust for 5 years, Robert explained. They transferred $200,000 to their personal accounts through a series of shell companies they created. Then they spent the remaining $400,000 on the weddings. The total theft exceeds $600,000 when you include the loan fraud. Shell companies. Robert spread out corporate formation documents showing that my parents had established 3 fake businesses: Harrison Family Investments, Connecticut Trust Management, and Coastal Financial Services. All three companies existed only on paper, but they provided a way to launder money from my trust fund into my parents' bank accounts. This level of financial manipulation required extensive planning, Robert said. They didn't just make impulsive decisions about wedding expenses. They constructed an elaborate scheme to systematically steal your inheritance over multiple years. The room felt like it was spinning. What about the forged loan documents? Identity theft, fraud, and forgery. When your parents co-signed you onto those loans at age 17, they committed federal crimes. Minors cannot legally enter binding loan agreements without court approval, which they never obtained. Robert made phone calls while I tried to process the magnitude of my family's betrayal. He contacted federal prosecutors, state investigators, and forensic accountants. Every conversation ended with the same conclusion. My parents had committed multiple serious crimes that carried decades in prison. There's something else, Robert said after hanging up from his final call. Your father's insurance business has been under investigation for 6 months. The state insurance commission suspects him of defrauding elderly clients. Your trust fund case might be connected to a much larger criminal enterprise. I stared out Robert's office window at the busy street below, watching normal people live normal lives while my family's criminal empire collapsed around me. What should I do? I asked. You should pursue criminal charges and civil lawsuits, Robert said firmly. Not just to recover your money, but to stop your parents from victimizing other people. Their theft of your trust fund was probably practice for bigger crimes. Will my sisters go to prison too? That depends on how much they knew and when they knew it. Accepting money you know is stolen makes you an accessory to the crime. If they participated in hiding the theft or helped create false documents, they could face serious charges. I thought about Jessica, Amanda, and Caroline celebrating their expensive weddings while knowing they were destroying my future. They weren't innocent victims. They were willing participants in a family conspiracy. I want them all prosecuted, I said. I want every penny recovered, and I want them held accountable for what they did. Robert nodded approvingly. Good. Justice requires accountability. Your grandfather would be proud that you're fighting to protect his legacy and your future. As I left Robert's office with copies of all the trust documents, I realized my family's betrayal ran deeper than greed. They had planned this theft methodically, involving multiple people, across several years. They didn't just steal my money, they stole my trust, my future, and my belief that family meant protection rather than exploitation. But now I had evidence, legal representation, and a clear path forward. The war was about to begin. Sunday dinner at the family home had always been sacred tradition, a time for connection, sharing, and togetherness. This Sunday would be the last one our family ever shared. I arrived carrying a briefcase containing trust documents, loan records, and corporate formation papers. My sisters were already there with their husbands, Jessica with Thomas, Amanda with Brian, and Caroline with Marcus. Everyone looked relaxed, chatting about weekend plans and upcoming holidays. Perry. Mom called from the kitchen. Perfect timing. The roast just finished cooking. I set my briefcase on the dining room table. We need to talk first. All of us. Dad looked up from carving the meat. Can't business wait until after dinner? Sunday is family time. This is about family, I said, opening the briefcase. It's about the $600,000 you stole from my trust fund over 5 years. The room went completely silent. Caroline's husband, Marcus, stopped mid-sentence in his conversation with Brian. Jessica set down her wine glass with trembling hands. Thomas looked confused, glancing between Jessica and me. 600,000, Amanda whispered. I thought it was only 400. So you did know, I said, looking directly at her. You knew the money was mine, and you took it anyway. Dad straightened up, still holding the carving knife. Perry, we discussed this. Family helps family. End of conversation. I pulled out the original trust documents and spread them across the table. This is the legal trust agreement Grandpa created. It specifically forbids using my money for anyone else. What you did wasn't helping family. It was grand theft. Thomas picked up one of the documents. As a lawyer in his family's firm, he immediately understood the legal implications. His face went pale as he read the terms. "Jessica," Thomas said quietly, "did you know about this when we planned our wedding?" Jessica's composure cracked. "Thomas, I can explain. My parents said the money was available for family needs. I didn't know it was illegal." "You didn't know stealing trust funds was illegal?" I demanded. "You work in accounting. You understand financial laws better than anyone." "I helped them process the transfers," Jessica admitted, tears starting to form. "But I thought it was legitimate family financial planning." Amanda spoke up defensively. "We all deserved beautiful weddings. Our parents worked hard their whole lives. They wanted to give us perfect celebrations. Using stolen money," I said. "Money that wasn't theirs to give." Brian, Amanda's husband, looked increasingly uncomfortable. "Amanda, you never mentioned that the wedding money came from Perry's trust fund. You said your parents had savings. It was family money," Amanda protested. "Perry's part of the family." Caroline had remained silent, but now she spoke with quiet conviction. "Perry, you're being selfish. We're sisters. Sisters share everything. You should be happy we had beautiful weddings instead of complaining about money." Marcus, her military husband, frowned. "Caroline, sharing means everyone agrees. This sounds like theft." "Don't you dare take his side," Caroline snapped at her husband. "You enjoyed our Hawaiian wedding. You posted pictures on social media bragging about the luxury resort. Don't pretend you're innocent now." The argument escalated quickly from there. Dad slammed the carving knife down on the cutting board. "That's enough. Perry, you have two choices. Drop this ridiculous accusation and apologize for disrupting our family, or get out and never come back." "I'm not dropping anything," I said. "I'm filing criminal charges and civil lawsuits. All of you will be held accountable." Mom burst into tears. "Perry, how can you threaten to send your own family to prison? We love you. Everything we did was because we love this family. You love this family so much that you forged my signature on $75,000 in loans." The room erupted in chaos. Jessica began sobbing, worried about Thomas' family's political reputation. Amanda accused me of jealousy and spite. Caroline called me a vindictive sociopath. Their husbands looked increasingly disturbed by the revelations. But the real shock came when Dad pulled out his cell phone. "If you're going to destroy this family with lies," Dad said, dialing a number, "then, well, protect ourselves." Over the next hour, I watched my family execute a coordinated character assassination campaign. Dad called my part-time employer at the bookstore, claiming I had been stealing money and showed signs of mental instability. He suggested they watch me carefully and consider whether I was trustworthy around cash. Mom contacted my community college advisor, expressing concern about my psychological state and claiming I had been making paranoid accusations against family members. She said I needed professional help and might become dangerous. Jessica called her husband's influential family, preemptively explaining that her brother was having a mental breakdown and making false accusations. She warned them that I might contact them with fabricated stories designed to damage their reputation. Amanda reached out to mutual friends from high school, spreading rumors that I was delusional and had developed an unhealthy obsession with money. She claimed I was hallucinating financial conspiracies and needed psychiatric intervention. Caroline was the cruelest. She contacted my girlfriend Sarah, telling her that I had been hiding psychological problems and was becoming increasingly unstable. She suggested that Sarah distance herself from me for her own safety. "What are you doing?" I demanded, watching my life crumble in real time. "Protecting ourselves from your false accusations," Dad said calmly. "If you want to wage war against this family, then we'll show you what war really looks like." Thomas, Brian, and Marcus looked increasingly uncomfortable as they realized they had married into a family capable of such calculated cruelty. But none of them spoke up to defend me. "You have until tomorrow morning to apologize and withdraw your threats," Dad continued. "If you pursue legal action, well, make sure everyone knows you're mentally ill and dangerous. Your girlfriend will leave you. Your employer will fire you. Your college will question your enrollment. Your friends will abandon you. Well, destroy your entire life before you can touch ours." I looked around the dining room at these people who had raised me, taught me right from wrong, and claimed to love me unconditionally. Now they were threatening to systematically annihilate my reputation and relationships to protect their criminal enterprise. "You're not family," I said quietly. "Family doesn't destroy each other to hide crimes." "Then you're not family either," Mom replied with cold finality. I gathered my documents and left their house forever, knowing that the war had officially begun, and they had just shown me exactly how ruthless they were willing to be. I drove aimlessly through Connecticut's winding back roads, my cell phone buzzing constantly with text messages I couldn't bear to read. By evening, my family's character assassination campaign had reached everyone in my life. Sarah's messages went from confused to concerned to distant. My employer left a voicemail about scheduling adjustments. Friends asked if I was okay, clearly having heard disturbing stories about my mental state. But there was one person my family couldn't touch, someone who had cut ties with them years ago for reasons I was only beginning to understand. Uncle Frank lived 40 minutes away in a modest ranch house surrounded by oak trees. Dad's older brother had been a police detective for 25 years before retiring early. The family claimed he had become paranoid and antisocial, but now I suspected there was more to his isolation. Frank answered the door in jeans and a flannel shirt, his weathered face breaking into a surprised smile. "Perry? What brings you here? It's been 3 years since I've seen you." "Uncle Frank, I need help. My family." I struggled to find words. "They stole my trust fund and now they're trying to destroy my life." Frank's expression shifted from surprise to grim understanding. "Come inside, son. We need to talk." His living room was spartanly furnished but comfortable. Police commendation plaques lined one wall. Frank poured coffee from a thermal carafe and settled into a recliner across from me. "Tell me everything," he said. I spent 2 hours explaining the trust fund theft, forged loans, shell companies, and character assassination campaign. Frank listened without interruption, occasionally taking notes on a legal pad. When I finished, Frank set down his coffee cup and shook his head. "Perry, I've suspected David was dirty for years. That's why I stopped coming to family gatherings. Your father is a sociopath who uses family as cover for criminal activity." "You knew," I suspected. David's insurance business never made sense financially. He lived too well for his client base. He bought expensive cars, took luxury vacations, and funded elaborate weddings while claiming to serve working-class families with modest policies. The math never added up. Frank walked to a filing cabinet and pulled out a thick folder labeled David Harrison, Concerns. Inside were years of newspaper clippings, insurance commission reports, and handwritten notes documenting suspicious patterns in Dad's business practices. "I've been tracking your father's activities since 2015, Frank explained. 3 elderly clients filed complaints about missing policy payments. 2 families claimed their death benefits were calculated incorrectly. Multiple people reported being overcharged for premiums. The State Insurance Commission opened investigations, but David always managed to produce paperwork that explained the discrepancies." "Fake paperwork." "I suspect so. The same way he created fake documents to steal your trust fund." "Your case isn't isolated, Perry. It's part of a pattern of financial exploitation that's been going on for years." Frank made phone calls while I processed this information. His first call was to Linda Martinez, a forensic accountant who specialized in financial fraud cases. She agreed to meet us the next morning to analyze my trust fund records. His second call was to Detective Maria Rodriguez, his former partner who now worked with the State Attorney General's office investigating financial crimes. She was very interested in any evidence that could advance their existing case against Dad's insurance business. "Mariah's been building a case against David for 8 months, Frank explained after hanging up. "They have evidence of premium manipulation and benefit calculation fraud, but they need more documentation to prove systematic criminal enterprise. Your trust fund theft could be the missing piece." The next morning, Linda Martinez spread my financial documents across her conference table like pieces of a puzzle. She was a sharp woman in her 40s who had spent 20 years unraveling complex fraud schemes. "This is sophisticated financial manipulation," Linda said, pointing to bank transfer records. "Your parents didn't just steal money impulsively. They created a multi-layered criminal enterprise designed to hide asset movement and launder stolen funds." She showed me how the shell companies worked, Harrison Family Investments received transferred trust fund money, then immediately transferred it to Connecticut Trust Management, which transferred it to Coastal Financial Services, which finally deposited it into my parents' personal accounts. Each transfer obscured the money trail and made the theft harder to detect. The loan fraud is even more serious, Linda continued. Forging a minor's signature on binding financial agreements is a federal crime. The fact that they used fake documentation to secure $75,000 in credit makes this major financial fraud. But Linda's most shocking discovery came when she analyzed the original trust fund balance. Perry, your grandfather left you more than $600,000. According to these investment records, the trust fund earned substantial interest and dividends over 5 years. When you account for market growth and compound interest, your fund should contain approximately $850,000 today. I stared at the numbers, feeling nauseated. So they stole $850,000 total, plus the $75,000 in fraudulent loans. Your total loss exceeds $900,000 when you include accumulated interest and penalties. Frank whistled low. David really went all in on this criminal enterprise. Linda arranged for us to meet with Detective Rodriguez that afternoon. Maria was a compact woman with intelligent eyes who listened carefully as we presented the evidence. This connects perfectly with our existing investigation, Maria said. We've identified 12 elderly clients who were systematically overcharged and undercompensated by David's insurance company. The methods match exactly what he did with Perry's trust fund, shell companies, fake documentation, and layered financial transfers to hide stolen money. She showed us files containing similar fraud patterns affecting dozens of families. Elderly clients paid premiums for years, only to discover their policies had been canceled or benefits reduced through forged documents and manipulated paperwork. Your trust fund case gives us the proof we need that David has been operating a criminal enterprise for years, Maria explained. The family nature of your case shows premeditation and systematic planning that establishes a pattern of criminal behavior. Frank leaned forward in his chair. What kind of charges are we looking at? For Perry's case alone, grand theft, fraud, forgery, identity theft, conspiracy, and violation of fiduciary duty. But with the broader insurance fraud evidence, we can pursue racketeering charges that carry much heavier sentences. What about my sisters? Depends on their level of involvement, Maria said. If they knowingly participated in hiding the theft or helped create false documents, they're accessories to multiple felonies. If Jessica helped process fraudulent financial transfers through her accounting work, she could face additional charges. As we left Mariah's office, I realized my family's betrayal had opened the door to justice for dozens of victims. My trust fund theft wasn't just about my stolen future. It was evidence of a criminal enterprise that had been destroying people's lives for years. You ready for this fight? Frank asked as we drove home. I'm ready to end it, I replied. They picked the wrong victim this time. Frank smiled grimly. Your grandfather would be proud. He always said the Harrison family stood for justice and integrity. It's time to prove him right. The federal courthouse steps were crowded with reporters when I arrived with Robert Harrison and Uncle Frank for the filing of criminal charges and civil lawsuits. Word had leaked about the case, and local news outlets were fascinated by the story of parents stealing their son's trust fund for daughters' weddings. Robert carried a briefcase containing 4 separate legal actions: criminal complaints against both parents and all 3 sisters, federal charges for the loan fraud and identity theft, civil lawsuits seeking full restitution plus damages, and asset freeze petitions to prevent my family from hiding money or property. Are you ready for this, Perry? Robert asked as we climbed the courthouse steps. I've been ready since they told me to hope I understand, I replied. The filing process took 3 hours. Criminal court clerks processed fraud, conspiracy, and racketeering charges against Dad, money laundering and conspiracy charges against Mom, forgery and accessory charges against Jessica, conspiracy and fraud charges against Amanda and Caroline. Federal prosecutors added identity theft and loan fraud charges against both parents. Civil court clerks processed lawsuits seeking $900,000 in restitution plus treble damages, attorney fees, and punitive awards. Asset freeze orders immediately froze my parents' bank accounts, seized their home and cars, and placed liens on Dad's insurance business. The most dramatic moment came when Detective Rodriguez arrested Dad at his office. I watched through the window as FBI agents escorted him out in handcuffs while his employees stared in shock. His insurance company computers and files were seized as evidence. Mom was arrested at a real estate closing, led away from confused clients who couldn't understand why their agent was being charged with money laundering. The local newspaper photographed her perp walk, and the image appeared on the evening news. Jessica was arrested at her accounting firm, where her employer immediately suspended her pending investigation. Amanda was arrested at her corporate office, creating a scandal that led to her termination. Caroline was arrested at home, with military police present to escort her husband Marcus to his own disciplinary hearing. The arrests triggered a media-feeding frenzy. Local television stations covered the story extensively, describing it as one of the largest family fraud cases in Connecticut history. The Hartford Courant ran a front-page story titled, "Parents Steal Son's College Fund for Daughter's Luxury Weddings." But the real bombshell came when federal investigators expanded their probe into Dad's insurance business. The FBI raid uncovered evidence of systematic fraud affecting over 60 clients spanning 8 years. Dad had been overcharging premiums, underreporting benefits, and stealing money from elderly policyholders who trusted him with their financial security. "Your father operated a criminal enterprise disguised as a family insurance business," Detective Rodriguez explained during a briefing. "He used his reputation in the community to gain trust, then systematically stole from clients who couldn't afford to fight back." The expanded investigation revealed that Dad had stolen over $2.4 million from various victims. He used sophisticated methods, including fake companies, forged documents, and manipulated computer records to hide his crimes. Mom's real estate business was similarly corrupt. She had been inflating property values, manipulating inspection reports, and overcharging fees to elderly clients selling their homes. Her criminal activities added another $600,000 to the total theft amount. Jessica's role was larger than initially suspected. As an accountant, she had created false financial statements and tax returns to hide her parents' criminal income. She helped establish the shell companies and processed fraudulent transfers for multiple fraud victims. Amanda and Caroline's involvement was primarily in the trust fund theft, but they had knowingly accepted money they understood was stolen. Their expensive weddings became evidence of their participation in the family criminal conspiracy. The media attention brought additional victims forward. Elderly clients who had suspected fraud but felt powerless to fight a respected local businessman now came forward with evidence. Families who had lost retirement savings through Dad's insurance manipulation provided documentation supporting the criminal charges. Thomas' prominent political family immediately distanced themselves from Jessica. His father, State Senator William Thompson, held a press conference announcing that his son was filing for divorce and cutting all ties with the Harrison criminal enterprise. Amanda's corporate employer terminated her contract and launched an internal investigation into any company business she had handled. Her husband Brian filed for divorce and moved out of their shared apartment. Caroline's situation was most severe. Her husband Marcus faced court-martial proceedings for association with criminal activity. The military required complete transparency in financial matters, and Caroline's acceptance of stolen money violated regulations governing officer conduct. The criminal trials were scheduled to begin within 6 months. Prosecutor estimated that Dad faced 30 to 40 years in prison if convicted on all charges. Mom faced 15 to 20 years. Jessica faced 10 to 15 years. Amanda and Caroline each faced 5 to 10 years. Civil court proceedings moved faster. Asset seizure orders allowed me to reclaim my parents' house, cars, and business property as partial restitution for my stolen trust fund. The court appointed a receiver to liquidate assets and compensate fraud victims. I moved into my childhood home while waiting for the criminal trials. But everything felt different now. The rooms where I had celebrated birthdays and holidays were now evidence of my family's crimes. The kitchen table where we had shared family dinners was where Dad had planned his fraudulent schemes. Uncle Frank helped me understand that seeking justice rather than revenge was the right path forward. Your grandfather established that trust fund to secure your future. Frank said. By fighting for it, you're protecting his legacy and stopping your family from hurting other people. The legal war was far from over, but the first battles had been won decisively. My family's criminal enterprise was exposed. Their assets were frozen, and justice was finally within reach. The criminal trials began on a cold February morning, 18 months after my 19th birthday revelation. I sat in the front row of the courthouse gallery, watching my parents and sisters face a jury of their peers for the crimes that had destroyed our family and devastated dozens of innocent victims. Dad's trial lasted 3 weeks. Prosecutor Linda Chen methodically presented evidence of his elaborate criminal enterprise: shell company documents, forged signatures, manipulated insurance records, and testimonies from elderly victims painted a picture of systematic financial predation spanning nearly a decade. The most devastating testimony came from 82-year-old Margaret Sullivan, who had trusted Dad to manage her late husband's life insurance policy. Dad had convinced her to transfer the policy to his company, then systematically stole her monthly payments while canceling her coverage. When she discovered the fraud, she had lost her home and was living with her daughter. I trusted him because he seemed like such a good family man, Mrs. Sullivan testified. He showed me pictures of his children and talked about wanting to help families like mine. I never imagined someone could be so cruel. Dad's defense attorney argued that financial mistakes weren't criminal intent, but the evidence was overwhelming. Federal forensic accountants had traced every stolen dollar through multiple bank accounts and shell companies. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours before returning guilty verdicts on all charges: racketeering, fraud, conspiracy, money laundering, and theft. Judge Patricia Williams sentenced Dad to 35 years in federal prison without possibility of parole for 15 years. Mr. Harrison, you exploited the trust of elderly clients and your own family to fund a lifestyle built on theft and deception. Your crimes were methodical, extensive, and devastating to your victims. Mom's trial focused on her money laundering activities and real estate fraud. Evidence showed she had actively participated in creating fake companies and processing stolen funds. Her sentencing was shorter, but still severe: 12 years in federal prison. Jessica's trial revealed the extent of her accounting fraud. She had created false tax returns, manipulated financial statements, and helped establish shell companies for multiple criminal schemes. Her professional credentials made her crimes particularly serious. She received 8 years in federal prison and permanent revocation of her accounting license. Amanda and Caroline were convicted of conspiracy and accessory charges related to the trust fund theft. Amanda received 4 years in state prison. Caroline received 3 years, but her military court-martial added additional penalties, including dishonorable discharge and forfeiture of military benefits. The criminal convictions enabled comprehensive civil judgments. Federal court ordered my parents to pay full restitution of $900,000, plus treble damages totaling $2.7 million. Additional penalties and attorney fees brought their total liability to $3.2 million. Asset seizure proceedings transferred ownership of my parents' home, cars, business building, and all financial accounts to a victim compensation fund. I received priority restitution as the primary plaintiff, but dozens of other fraud victims also received compensation. The house where I grew up became mine through court order, but it felt strange living in the center of so much criminal activity. Every room contained memories of family celebrations that now seemed like elaborate deceptions. The dining room where we had shared Sunday dinners was where Dad had planned his fraudulent schemes. I decided to transform the property into something positive. With Uncle Frank's help, I established the Harrison Trust Fund Protection Foundation, dedicated to helping young adults whose families had stolen their inheritance or education funds. The house became our headquarters, and its history served as a reminder that family financial abuse could happen to anyone. The foundation grew quickly as media coverage brought similar victims forward. We helped recover stolen education funds, protected vulnerable trusts from greedy relatives, and provided legal assistance to young people fighting family financial fraud. My sister's marriages collapsed completely under the weight of criminal convictions and financial devastation. Thomas divorced Jessica before her trial ended, seeking to protect his political family's reputation. Brian left Amanda immediately after her arrest, unable to handle the scandal at his corporate job. Marcus divorced Caroline while she was serving her prison sentence, ending his own military career, but salvaging his personal reputation. The criminal enterprise asset forfeiture allowed me to claim ownership of Dad's former insurance business building. I converted it into additional office space for the foundation and rented other suites to legal aid organizations serving fraud victims. Media attention brought national recognition to the foundation's work. I testified before congressional committees about the need for stronger trust fund protection laws. Several states passed legislation requiring independent oversight for family-controlled inheritance accounts. Uncle Frank became the foundation's security director, using his law enforcement background to investigate suspicious family financial situations. Detective Maria Rodriguez joined our advisory board, helping identify patterns that indicated financial abuse. The foundation's success grew beyond my trust fund recovery. We helped hundreds of young adults recover stolen inheritance money, protected vulnerable elderly people from family financial abuse, and educated families about proper trust fund management. 2 years after the trials, I was invited to speak at the National Conference on Financial Elder Abuse. Standing at the podium, I looked out at an audience of prosecutors, investigators, and advocates who were fighting similar battles across the country. My family's betrayal taught me that financial abuse thrives in secrecy, I told the audience. Criminals count on victims being too ashamed or intimidated to seek help. By bringing these crimes into the light, we protect future victims and restore justice for those who have already suffered. After my speech, dozens of people approached me with their own stories of family financial betrayal. Each story reinforced my understanding that my trust fund case wasn't unique. It was part of a larger pattern of family financial abuse that destroys lives across America every day. The foundation continued expanding its reach, but I knew the real victory wasn't just recovering my money. It was transforming personal betrayal into protection for others, and ensuring my family's crimes led to positive change rather than lasting bitterness. 5 years have passed since that devastating 19th birthday dinner when my world collapsed with 8 simple words. Hope you understand, son. Family comes first. Today, I stand in the converted offices of what used to be my childhood home, now headquarters of the Harrison Trust Fund Protection Foundation, reflecting on a journey that transformed the worst betrayal of my life into meaningful purpose. The foundation has become something I never could have imagined during those dark, early days of legal battles and family destruction. We have helped recover over $15 million for 430 victims of family financial fraud across 17 states. Our legal assistance program provides free representation for young adults fighting relatives who have stolen their inheritance or education funds. The walls of my old bedroom now display thank you letters from college students whose trust funds we helped recover, elderly clients whose families were stealing their retirement savings, and young parents whose relatives had fraudulently accessed their children's education accounts. Each letter represents a life protected from the same devastation my family inflicted on me and dozens of other victims. Uncle Frank remains my closest advisor and the foundation's security director. His law enforcement background proved invaluable in developing investigation techniques that help identify family financial abuse before it reaches crisis levels. Your grandfather would be amazed, Frank often tells me. He established that trust fund to secure your future, but you've used it to secure futures for hundreds of other people. Detective Maria Rodriguez joined our board of directors after retiring from the State Attorney General's office. She helps train our investigators and maintains relationships with law enforcement agencies nationwide. The Harrison case became the template for prosecuting family financial fraud, she explained during our last board meeting. Your willingness to fight back created legal precedents that protect thousands of other victims. My personal life found healing in unexpected places. Sarah, my girlfriend during the family crisis, initially distanced herself when my sisters spread lies about my mental health. But when the truth emerged through the trials, she reached out to apologize and offer support. We reconnected slowly, building trust through shared commitment to the foundation's mission. Sarah and I married 3 years ago in a simple ceremony at the foundation offices, surrounded by fraud survivors whose lives had been restored through our work. Our twin daughters, Emma and Grace, are now 18 months old. They play in the same rooms where I grew up, believing family meant unconditional love and protection. But they will learn early that true family means accountability, honesty, and mutual respect. The most profound lesson from my experience is that toxic family relationships poison everyone they touch, while choosing justice over false peace creates genuine healing. My parents spent years convincing themselves that stealing from me was justified by their love for my sisters. My sisters convinced themselves that accepting stolen money was acceptable because we were family. None of them examined whether their actions aligned with their claimed values. When families enable criminal behavior to preserve artificial harmony, they become criminal enterprises themselves. Real love requires holding loved ones accountable for harmful actions, even when accountability is painful or costly. The Foundation's work consistently demonstrates that family members who commit financial fraud rarely stop with one victim. They continue exploiting relatives until someone has courage to seek justice. My parents and sisters are serving their prison sentences in different facilities across Connecticut and Massachusetts. I maintain no contact with any of them, though I monitor their parole proceedings to ensure continued restitution payments. Their crimes destroyed not just my trust fund, but the trust itself that holds families together. Jessica lost her accounting career permanently and will likely work minimum wage jobs for the rest of her life. Amanda struggles with employment due to her criminal record and the scandal surrounding her arrest. Caroline's military discharge eliminated her planned career path, and her criminal conviction limits her employment options. Their former husbands have all remarried and moved on with their lives. Thomas successfully distanced his political family from the Harrison scandal and won election to the state legislature. Brian advanced in his corporate career after demonstrating decisive action in divorcing Amanda. Marcus remained in military service after his divorce was finalized and eventually achieved promotion to major. The most satisfying aspect of our Foundation's work is witnessing transformation in families who choose accountability over denial. When relatives steal inheritance funds or education money, families face the same choice I faced: enable the criminal behavior or seek justice. Those who choose justice often discover that prosecution leads to healing, while those who choose enabling typically face escalating financial abuse. We recently helped the Patterson family recover $200,000 that grandparents had stolen from their grandchildren's education accounts. The parents initially resisted prosecuting the grandparents, hoping family discussions could resolve the matter privately. But the grandparents had been systematically stealing from multiple grandchildren for years and showed no remorse when confronted. Prosecuting my own parents was the hardest decision I ever made. Jennifer Patterson told our support group last month, but it was also the most important decision. My children learned that stealing is wrong regardless of who does it, and my parents finally faced consequences that forced them to acknowledge their crimes. The Foundation's educational programs emphasize that family financial abuse thrives in environments where loyalty is defined as accepting harmful behavior without consequences. Healthy families address conflicts directly, seek professional mediation when necessary, and prioritize protection of vulnerable members over preservation of artificial harmony. Congressional testimony I provided led to passage of the Family Trust Protection Act, requiring independent oversight for inheritance accounts exceeding $100,000. The law mandates annual financial reporting to beneficiaries and creates federal penalties for trustees who misuse trust funds. Similar legislation passed in 12 states, creating nationwide protection for inheritance funds. My trust fund experience taught me that betrayal can become the catalyst for discovering inner strength and life purpose when channeled toward protecting others. The money my grandfather left to secure my individual future has secured futures for hundreds of families through the Foundation's advocacy and legal assistance. Young adults who contact our Foundation often express shame about being victimized by family members. "I should have seen it coming," they say, or "I should have been stronger." But family financial fraud succeeds precisely because it exploits trust and love that victims naturally feel toward relatives. The shame belongs to perpetrators who abuse family relationships, not to victims who believed family meant protection. The Foundation's support groups help survivors understand that fighting family financial abuse requires tremendous courage and represents moral strength rather than family disloyalty. Many participants initially worry about destroying their family by seeking legal recourse, but they discover that families destroyed by criminal behavior can only be rebuilt through accountability and justice. Our children will grow up understanding that true family loyalty means protecting each other from harm, including harm caused by other family members. They will learn that enabling criminal behavior is not love, and that accountability is not punishment, but rather the foundation for genuine trust and respect. Emma and Grace will have properly managed trust funds established with independent oversight and professional management. They will receive financial education from early ages and understand their rights regarding inheritance and education funds. Most importantly, they will understand that family relationships must be earned through consistent ethical behavior rather than demanded through blood relation. The Foundation continues expanding our reach through partnerships with legal aid organizations, elder abuse prevention groups, and family counseling services. We train professionals to recognize signs of family financial abuse and provide resources for intervention before situations reach crisis levels. Looking back on that devastating birthday dinner, I realize my parents gave me an unexpected gift through their betrayal. They showed me that choosing justice over family loyalty can create positive change that extends far beyond personal circumstances. Their crimes became the foundation for protecting others from similar devastation. I often wonder what would have happened if I had accepted their explanation and hoped I understood as they requested. Dozens of other victims would have continued suffering financial abuse. Criminal behavior would have escalated. My sisters would have learned that stealing from family members carried no consequences. The pattern of exploitation would have continued indefinitely. Instead, seeking justice created accountability that ended years of criminal activity and led to positive change for hundreds of families. My trust fund theft became evidence that sent criminals to prison and recovered millions of dollars for other victims. Personal betrayal became public protection. The Foundation's mission statement reads, "Family means protecting each other from harm, including harm caused by other family members." This principle guides all our work and reflects the most important lesson from my experience with family financial fraud. As I prepare for another day of counseling fraud survivors and advocating for stronger legal protections, I want to ask everyone listening to this story an important question. If someone you trusted completely betrayed that trust for personal gain, would you have the courage to seek justice, even if it meant destroying your relationship with them forever? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and let me know whether you think family loyalty should have limits when relatives commit serious crimes. Thank you for listening to my story and supporting survivors of family financial abuse. I hope my experience encourages others to seek justice when families betray their trust, and I hope it reminds families that real love requires accountability rather than enabling harmful behavior. Please like this story if it resonated with you. Subscribe for more content about overcoming betrayal and finding justice, and share this story with anyone who might benefit from understanding that family financial abuse is never acceptable, regardless of the justifications offered by perpetrators. Remember that seeking justice when family members commit crimes is not revenge. It is protection for yourself and for future victims who deserve better than exploitation disguised as love.